Hold on. Before you go down there and grab the POB, there's a couple things you need to know. One, this is the second step in a league start, meaning that you're not going to start with this exact POB. You're going to start with Explosive Concoction, and then you're going to transition to this sometime around yellow or red maps. Second, this is going to be my league start build, so it will change over the first week or so of the league starting. Now, this is a good thing for you because if I'm playing it, that means that any problems that I run into will be fixed for you as it gets updated over time. Now let's talk a bit about why wands and why a champion. The reason I like wands is they have one of the best movement skills in the game, which is shield charge. They typically scale insane amounts of attack speed and movement speed, so it feels good to move around on them, and they can typically be scaled significantly more tanky than a bow build can while still getting almost as good of clear. I play wand builds basically every league. This isn't new for me, but the champion has changed a pretty decent amount. And the main reason that I want to play a champion over something like a Slayer or a Deadeye or a Trickster or something like that is because later on, and even early on when we're able to stack Fortify and give that to our teammates, I think that's going to help quite a bit with keeping mercenaries alive, keeping enemy guardians alive, as well as just keeping ourselves alive as well. Scaling damage on wand builds is always just a money thing. If you throw more money at the build, it can scale more damage. But scaling defenses can be a little bit more difficult sometimes. That's why I tend to lean towards more defensive ascendancies for my wand build. Like last league, we played a Trickster. But this league, we're going to be playing a champion. So let's talk a little bit about it. So if you watched my previous video, which you should have because you go Explosive Concoction into this build, you'll notice this is the same character. I've leveled up a couple of times and I just piecemealed together a bunch of gear from my standard stash. It's just using a lot of random stuff I had laying around. Like the implicits on this do nothing, the craft on this does nothing. We've got like Perseverance, Piscators, and a couple other things that were just kind of floating around. This is probably the best piece of gear on my character. But this character is doing roughly a third or so of the damage in the POB, which is what will be most likely easily obtainable on League Start. It's 3 mod rares as well as like tier 4 and tier 5 uniques. Mary Leans is a tier 3 unique, but I'm one of like 5 people that use this ever, so it shouldn't be insanely expensive. And besides that, we do have a Timeless Jewel, but this Timeless Jewel is just a random one. It is not giving us anything crazy. I think the most it gives us is like a little bit of fire resist and some strength somewhere. I don't know where the strength is. But let's go ahead and jump into a map. This is just a tier 16 Jungle Valley. We've got no regen, increased accuracy, increased damage, vulnerability, less damage suppressed, and then I just threw a whole bunch of ambush scarabs on this. Our Atlas tree is just shrines, some altar stuff, as well as some strongbox stuff. Just once again, another tree I randomly threw together. And let's see how this is going to look. So this is the build that you'll be playing if you do follow this probably the first couple of days of the league. Like most likely for slower players, you'll be here week 1. For faster players, you'll most likely be here on day like 2 or 3. Now, there are some pretty big upgrades that you can do for this build. Mainly, yeah, of course it's not. Mainly in that you're going to be getting the Dying Sun Flask, which is going to make your clear significantly better, but even as is right now, that's detonate. Let's not die. Even as is right now, with a third of the damage, we're still doing mostly fine, right? Like this is, I think this right here is, I think when I did it in POB is like 2 million damage, and the build should be doing closer to 6 million when you get everything together. Like we don't have the taunt nodes because they don't exist. We're missing a lot of points on the tree, a lot of gear, a lot of everything, so it'll be much better around then. Now, I do want to talk quickly about one mechanic that is a little bit weird that people might have problems with, and that is going to be proccing adrenaline. If you don't know what adrenaline is, the ascendancy here, the champion has this node called First to Strike, Last to Fall. I'd argue this is one of the most powerful single ascendancy points in the game, especially early on. This is going to make you zoom through the campaign on Econk like none other. But you see this line here that says gain adrenaline for 20 seconds when you reach low life. Low life is 50% or lower. You recover 25% of your life, and you remove all ailments and burning when you gain adrenaline. So the idea here is that we need something that eats half of our life so that we'll immediately go on low life. We have a Corrupting Fever, and this Corrupting Fever, if I can find it, is linked with Life Tap as well as Second Wind, so that when we press it, we proc this adrenaline. Now, it does heal us up a little bit, and we have a bunch of leech and stuff, so we'll go back to full, but you can also just hit a Life Flask immediately as well. The idea here is this adrenaline is giving us 100% increased damage, 25% increased attack, cast, and movement speed, and 10 physical damage reduction. You can't gain adrenaline if you already have it, so spamming this button is not going to do anything but kill you if you just spam it constantly. You're just not going to be able to do anything. That is pretty much the only weird mechanic that we're playing with here. Other than that, you've got Vol Molten Shell that you can click, you've got your movement skill, which is going to be Shield Charge, you also have Frost Blink that you can blink around with, and then you've got your main skill. Now, as I said before with Dying Sun, when you do get Dying Sun, this will make your clear significantly better because it's going to upgrade you to 5 projectiles. And you'll pretty much have that up constantly while mapping. It'll refill itself constantly from killing enemies, so you don't have to worry too much about that. One other thing is that for very difficult bosses, you can also swap out this returning projectiles for Barrage, which will almost double your DPS and will make you do a ton more single target damage, make it much easier to kill those harder bosses. So let's go ahead and jump into Path of Building so we can talk a little bit about the transition, how that's going to work, and look at the finalized POB for this version of the build. So let's start with the build you're going to transition from. This is going to be the first POB that you're going to click. This is going to be the video that I made previously. This is the Explosive Concoction champion that you're going to start as. This POB is pretty detailed. I'm going to move myself over here so you can see that we've got a whole bunch of trees here. This will show you step by step which points you should be taking act by act by act. It'll go very in depth with which points to take, so if you're worried about, well, what points do I take first, second, third, all of that, it'll all be in here, every single step, all the way up into white maps, yellow maps, red maps, and then eventually you'll get to an in-game build here. Also, I have included my tree that I used on my SSF run. I've also included pretty much everything for my SSF run, the skills that my character had. I have the items that my character had. These are the items my character was wearing when I did both of my 2 stones, basically, at the end. It was very simple, very easy. I was relatively tanky, and I was rushing. In an actual league start scenario, while you are in trade league, you will have way better gear than I have, and I was able for the most part to just stand still and face tank like Eater. Eater of Worlds, I stood in his face and tanked every single ability besides the Drowning Orbs. Of course, you can't tank those, but I just stood in his face. I think I moved out of the way of the big beam sometimes, but I think I tanked that once or twice as well. Crazy tanky. Damage is okay early on. With trade league gear, you'll have way better damage, but that is in there if you want to look at that. Beyond that, in the skills, we've got all of the stuff that you need, like how to start out. You're going to be starting at a Spectral Throw early on. You'll eventually move on to Poisonous Concoction up until about 24 when you get Explosive Concoction, and then you'll be using Explosive Concoction like here all the way up into the end game. You can transition into the Wand build, I would say, in like late yellow maps, early red maps at the earliest if you can get a hold of all of the gear, but this will last you all the way into farming tier 16s, no problem. You can gather up the pieces that you need, and a lot of the pieces of gear actually overlap. You're going to be using the same shield, you're going to be using the same chest piece, so when you get this chest piece and you like corrupt 6-link it, you'll be able to use it on the next build. You'll just have to change the colors, which isn't super hard because you just do 1 blue a couple of times. Oh, and it's using Perseverance as well. A lot of these pieces of gear will also work on the other builds, so not a ton to worry about here. A lot of the same gear. Once you've got your 2 stones, once you've gotten your gear together, once everything is working, then you can transition into this POB. This is going to be the Wand POB for the build that you saw in this video. As you can see with the items, we're using a lot of the same items here, a lot of the same gear. You're just going to need to grab a Piscators, a Mary Leans, and make sure the rest of your gear kind of fills out here. Some other things that you're going to want to be on the lookout for is an Elemental Hit of the Spectrum. This is typically pretty popular early on. You're also going to want to level all of your gems in like an offhand, get like 2 one-handers with a whole bunch of sockets in them, and just level up these gems as you go so that you can swap into them, because a lot of these other links, once again, are just going to be the same links that you're using from previous, so level up these gems in your offhand whenever you can. I would say transitioning to this, you probably want to be in the 85 to 90 range, which for very fast people will be like day 1, day 2. For slower people who are taking their time, probably day 4 or 5 is when you're going to transition to this. Very easy gear. Also be on the lookout for updates from me. I'll be updating these POBs as well as making new POBs for anything beyond what I'm currently doing. There's going to be a bunch of new stuff that's coming out, so I'm just going to do the best with what we've got. I'm going to update to probably like some kind of fortify stack something on this character. So look forward to that probably towards the end of week 1. On a last note, there are a couple of optional more expensive items that do make this build a lot more powerful. In particular, the Dying Sun. This will make your clear significantly better. I have no idea how expensive this is going to be, so I put it in the optional more expensive item section. The Taming might be hard to fit because you're going to be really low on chaos resistance, so keep that in mind. But then as for the mercenary gear, we've recently learned that the mercenary can only use weapon types that make sense for them and items that match their like base archetype. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find a mercenary that is intelligence and evasion based so that you can use these two pieces of gear. Intelligence evasion, probably some kind of shadow based mercenary. And then you're going to want to see if you can find one that uses scepter skills, I guess, or uses mace skills or something like that so that you can use this weapon. If you can't find one that uses scepters, then I would probably just say get anything that you can, and I'll have to find some other way to make us elemental ailment immune, which isn't super hard, but this was just a really easy way to go about it. As said, we know very little about the mercenaries, so this will be updated in like the first couple of days. You'll have this information before it matters for you. And as a last note, the configuration is set up for the mercenary buffs that we're going to be getting. I will update this as we get more time. This is already accounting for the returning Proj nerf, and then the mercenary buffs are going to be in these items here that you'll see. So we have Sign of the Sin Eater, which is going to make it so that they'll take elemental ailments instead of us. Thundersight will allow them to apply some kind of sap. Legacy of Fury is going to make it so that they're scorched, and then Perkle's Toe will make it so that our damage is lucky, which is really powerful with this kind of build. That is all put into the mercenary buffs here in the custom modifiers. And then lastly, of course, you might notice that there are 10 ascendancy points on the Ascension right here. That is because this Conqueror node doesn't do anything currently. That 10% reduced damage node that you see there, you have to tick this to get it to happen. So as long as that isn't ticked, that's not actually doing anything, and Worthy Foe is just going to be its own complete node. I've also set it to 20 Fortify instead of 15. Everything else should be about the same. And that's going to be it for the video. Hopefully you guys have a good league start. It looks like a really solid league, and as I said, I will be making update videos about this build as I play it myself and move through the start of the league and see what we get. So remember, boys, if you enjoy this content and you want to see more of it, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos, and stay safe out there in raid class. And I'll see you guys in the next video.